want your take on that. See if maybe I'm going somewhere, or if I'm just noodling with my thoughts.
No, I think today it's a little different now. I got 4 quarterbacks, and they're 4 of our kids, by the way, that are low-round draft choices that are leading ball clubs and doing a good job. The kid at Carolina is doing a good job. Minshew's doing a good job. There's, I think, 2 other youngsters they're doing a really good job leading ball clubs right now. So I think that we're going to get to the point where we're going to stop paying astronomical amounts of money to players at the quarterback position because it can really affect your team if the guy isn't delivering. So, I think it's a good move for some of these ball clubs to stack number 1 picks, but maybe not have to spend it all on quarterbacks and spread it out a little bit. So, yeah, that's you're never going to hurt yourself getting draft choices for proven players, particularly when you're swapping them and it's a wash.
Okay, let's talk about tomorrow's show. As everybody knows, we have our weekly show, Motor Mouth and Wild Bill Winters. And Bill, I know it's something you've been paying attention to all day. I know you'll do a lot of homework for our audience tomorrow, but we're going to focus on the XFL, something you're very close to. So what are your thoughts about what our listeners can look forward to tomorrow, Bill?
Well, I think you're going to find some quarterbacks that are going to get some reps in the XFL, and then once the XFL season's over, get a chance to play in the National Football League. And that's the contracts kind of came out, so that's one of the things that the XFL is going to allow it to do. And I think you're going to see some players get some reps and play their way into the league. So we might see a little shift in the amount of money that's being paid to certain college players, and maybe getting these monies being spent elsewhere to build a better team.
Right. Are there any...
a better product.
I know we'll get to this tomorrow, but what are your thoughts about Cardell Jones landing in D.C.?
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Right away, I guess you have some people in the media jumping the gun and, talking about Haskins and all that. But get in there and let him play. So I don't really have any opinion right now, and it's too early on the XFL.
Right.
And the reason I say that, a lot of the players are going to be sitting out that aren't going to sign until the end of the year, because they could get activated in the National Football League. Guys like Ryan Mallett, those types of guys. So there's going to be another draft towards the end of the year, and you're going to be picking up a lot of these guys that are in the NFL right now with developmental rosters, or guys that got some playing time, and they're probably going to go into the XFL as well. So the XFL is really trying to find quarterbacks, and I think this league is going to allow some guys that are going to get a chance to develop. So maybe we'll have some more Minshews and some more Allens. What's the other kid's name? Bailey? Is that his name? Quarterback?
Right. Mm-hmm.
His name escapes me right now. Yeah, there's one other one out there right now. So, I think, a lot of guys are starting to learn how to read coverages in college and coming out and adjusting to the pro game, where maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that wasn't the issue. That was the issue. You have guys that can read coverages. So, you get guys that are coming out of colleges now being able to play the pro game a lot easier.
Okay. All right, well, just, all right, we'll talk about the XFL, and I'm sure we'll come up with a few other things, but I'm looking forward for our next opportunity to watch Motor Mouth and Wild Bill Winters. So, Bill, do a little homework on the XFL. We'll talk about it, and maybe we'll have some other football notes that we can bring up to complement it. Anything you want to ask Louis, Bill, tonight?
Nope. Louis, always a pleasure.
All right, good speaking to you again, Bill.
All right, then I will talk to you guys next week, hopefully, and Motor, I'll talk to you tomorrow night. You bet.
Well, Bill, thank you very much for being on there. Enjoy the rest of the baseball game that we're probably glad we're missing anyways.
It's 7-4 right now, so it's somewhat of a game now.
Oh, it's 7-4. It's become a game.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's okay. Actually, when I get out of here, I'll be watching the Detroit Red Wings and the Vancouver Canucks. So,
yes.
Hockey, you've heard of it, right, Bill? We're playing back home in Detroit. So, all right, with that said, of course, you ought to know you played in the CFL. They played up there, too. So, all right, Bill, you and I will be talking tomorrow. Get ready for the show. But meanwhile, have yourself a great night, and thanks for being on again, buddy. Appreciate you, bro.
All right.
Take care, Bill. Have a good night.
Bye. Our next guest is going to be Damon Knight, and He's obviously in Detroit, and it's pretty safe to say we know what he'll be talking about, don't we, Lewis?
Talking some hockey with you, I presume.
No, actually he won't. He'll be talking with the Lions and the Packers.
Okay, well there you go. Yeah, well that's definitely something of topic. I mean, it's funny that he talked the XFL. I believe the XFL wasn't that a thing earlier in the 2000s, and now Vince McMahon's bringing it back.
Well, wait till I bring on Michael Keller here. He'll talk about it. But that's for a future show. But yeah, I mean, Bill Winters has played in a lot of different pro leagues. You talk about a guy that's been around the block. Mm-hmm. He's definitely been around the block for sure. So
yeah, I mean, it's funny. Some of the names on this list that I'm reading right now, Landry Jones, I think really him playing in the XFL, he's 30 years old. I remember watching him as a backup to Roethlisberger when he got hurt a couple years ago.
Right.
And he was relatively unimpressive. I didn't really see anything that stuck out. The dude is, like I said, he's 30 years old. I really think the last chance he has at playing competitive football is through the XFL, or maybe he goes to the AFL, because at this point, given his
Arena
age...
Football League?
Yeah, I'm saying, though...
First of all, let me just give you some info. I'm glad you brought it up, though. His coach in the XFL was his college coach, Bob Stoops. Mm-hmm. So I think you're okay there.
Right, really what I'm saying is I genuinely think those are the only two avenues he has left. I don't think teams are interested in a 30-year-old. He's a practice squad player at best. He'll sign and hold a clipboard, if anything. Just because what we saw in the NFL, though, was brief. It wasn't impressive. 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. You know, not great. But I just think, given his age and what we've seen in that small sample, he's not going to get another shot in the NFL. But the XFL, you know what Vince McMahon is all about. You know, shaking things up with the WWE, and he's doing it again with the XFL. So I mean, you know, draft as much as you can, my friend. And I have a question for you. And
what's that?
Bill briefly touched on it. I've actually heard a little bit about this when the XFL was announced that it was going to come back, and that was that I believe some players could forego college but still and play in the XFL, say if they're getting, because we've had this debate forever, and I actually debated Lane Kiffin about this, about whether college athletes should be paid, and I was wondering if players may forego college altogether and just go to the XFL, build up some of their stats, and then maybe get drafted. I understand the competition level in college is that you're going up against guys who will eventually at one point be in the NFL to varying degrees of success. But, you know, I'm wondering from you to me, or from me to you asking this, do you think that could possibly be a thing?
You know what? I wouldn't hold your breath a whole lot with it. I think the XFL needs to establish instant credibility by going with more veterans. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, though, Lewis, okay, that you may run across a few guys that they'll probably bring in. I'm not going to go there. But I think when you're a brand new league, you want to get in as many established names as you can. And there's enough of those out there to actually go ahead and you can utilize in this league. I mean, Luis Perez, a guy that was a star at Birmingham, has gotten a job. Connor Cook, formerly of Michigan State, landed. And there'll be a bunch of other guys. And they've actually got some pretty good coaches there, too.
Funny enough, not a major correlation, but Bill Veeck, famous baseball executive, once had Eddie Gaedel, 3'6", literally suffering from dwarfism, taking at bat for the St. Louis Browns in 1951 as a promotional stunt, kind of what the XFL is doing. And then 8 years later, he wants to generate some more buzz when he's with the White Sox. So he has these little aliens come on the field, and who's one of those aliens? Eddie Gaedel. So I get what you're saying. Bring somebody in who has somewhat of a reputation to, generate some income and some buzz for your respective
it's funny
sport.
how you say that. I actually met Bill Veeck many, many years ago here in South Florida, but I got to know his son Mike over at the baseball winter meeting. So, I just say I've met a few people through the years, okay? So, but with that said, we'll wait on Damon Knight to talk about the Lions. And, of course, just so you know, folks, our guest list tonight has been Ryan Skolrud, led it off with doing the fantasy football. Anthony Woods, the NFL insider. Tom Shanahan will be a new regular on the program talking about the ACC, basketball as well as football. And, of course, Barry Foote, Bill Winters, and, of course, waiting on Damon Knight. And then we will convert to Xavier McKnight. So as we wrap up the night. So with that said, I'm looking forward to it. You having a good time tonight, Lewis?
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking with Barry, with Bill. UK is always fun because of how he always seems to be in such a good mood. And, again, I like somebody who, he came from the world of soccer to immerse himself in America, living in Texas, and, just become such a big football fan is cool. I'm not going to call it cultural appropriation, but again, it's pretty neat to see that he He's such a big fan.
Okay, with that said, a guy who's a big fan is Damon Knight, and I'm sure it was a very difficult fandom for you last night, Damon, when you're talking about the Lions and the Green Bay Packers, right, Damon?
Yes, yep. It was just awful. Starting with Trey Flowers getting those penalties, with illegal hands to the face, and on the replay, it clearly shows that he's only holding him by his shoulder pads, and so I didn't agree with that call, and ultimately it ended up costing us the game. But besides that, there was other factors that caused us to lose, and it was, Kerryon Johnson only averaging 2.6 yards per carry with 1 touchdown and 34 yards rushing. That's unacceptable. I mean, as a starter, you need to perform at a high level almost every night, and a total of 34 yards is not going to get that done. Matthew Stafford, 265 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 18 for 32. That's okay, but you need to add 1 or 2 touchdowns to your stats, to propel a team to victory. Aaron Rodgers, outperformed him with 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick, 24 for 39. Those are elite numbers, and so it's not good. So it's they gotta get better.
So tell me the reaction, Detroit. Obviously, they're furious about what's going on here. You can't beat the Packers kicking 5 field goals either. And yet, I know Matt Patricia certainly isn't going to dwell on it, but let's not kid ourselves. This type of game could ruin the Lions' season, especially with the fact that the Packers are sitting a luckily 5-1.
Yes. Yep. And Prater, happened to make 5 field goals. He should never be in that position to do that. He should make like maybe 2 or 3 of those, and that's it. But the reaction was, for me at least, was, we're going to find out how good our team is based on, I think, tonight, or in that game, coming off the Kansas City Chiefs game, and I was severely disappointed. We did not turn over the ball, which was really good. I thought our special teams played solid, and we caused, 2 fumbles. And, we stepped up, and I saw some, signs of potential. It's not going to be enough if we only, rush for 34 yards and put up no TDs and 3 drives to the red zone. So, or the 1, but you got to come away with 6. So,
well, amazingly enough, Matthew Stafford got off to a nice start. They start that flea flicker, and you thought the Lions were well on their way, and all of a sudden, once they hit 13 points, they stalled, and then they, the rest of the game speaks for itself. They seemed like they got off started really well.
Oh yeah, and I loved it. I was like, finally, we're throwing downfield, we're being aggressive. This is what we need to be. This is what we've been dying to see. And they were saying at 97.1 earlier this morning that, it looked like when Galladay caught the ball, he kind of slowed down or just got caught from behind, and he was within 2 or 3 yards of any Green Bay defender. And so that's a question mark. You don't know if he's injured or not, but we got to make crucial plays when it matters, and we got to start stepping up to the plate. So,
what do you want to add to it?
I think the second week in a row where a Green Bay running back has unleashed his dual threat presence on, other than the terrible officiating calls. Jamal Williams, 136 total yards on 18 possessions was a big factor in that game. He did have a receiving touchdown late. I mean, Rodgers, it's interesting to see him throw an interception, and he's only thrown 81 interceptions in his career to something like over 350 touchdowns is insane. So, I mean, credit to the Detroit defense for picking one off from one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time there. But, I don't know, man. I mean, Stafford to me has always just struck me as this kind of quarterback that he's just never really lived up to that hype. I appreciate the durability and the fact that he's been in the league now for, over a decade. But what have they won with him? He's pretty much been like the Marvin Lewis of quarterbacks when it comes to, putting up big numbers. I look forward to watching him every Thanksgiving, and I appreciate that while I'm eating my turkey and mashed potatoes. But I've just never been, too overwhelmingly impressed with him, and I think sooner or later they're just going to have to start looking towards the future.
Yep.
He'll have a future elsewhere. It's going to be like a Joe Flacco situation where Flacco won you a big game 7 years ago, but he may have found a home somewhere else before soon. Just given the fact that they just have not gotten done with Matt Patricia, and I don't know. He